Palantir was not lying. That's it. That's the title of this video. Palantir was not lying. What I saw today, or yesterday, I wasn't able to make a video on it yesterday, unfortunately, but what I saw yesterday in terms of what news came out. You talk about waking up in the morning and you're like, well then, I guess I guess some stuff is happening. Let me show you guys what's happening right now as I readjust this, because this news was honestly just quite amazing news. I could not believe when I saw this news. From President Zelensky, this was on his Instagram. Digital technology plays a big role in the war. Partnership in the defense security and digitization sector was discussed with Palantir CEO Alex Karp. This will strengthen our army and defeat the enemy as soon as possible. Alex Karp is the first CEO of a large company to personally come to Kyiv since the start of a full-scale war and show that Ukraine is open to cooperation in business. Thanks for the support. My goodness. And there you go. You've got Alex Karp and President Volodymyr Zelensky taking a picture together. Let's look at some other pictures that came out. For those who haven't seen this, if you're a Palantir shareholder, I'm pretty sure you've seen this, but if you haven't seen this, this is probably, some crazy stuff you're seeing. There's Alex Karp and there's Zelensky, and they're going through some pictures. You've got another picture with them talking now. And you've got another picture of him shaking hands with some of his other people. I mean, goodness gracious. Come on, man. Come on. We've got some stuff to talk about. A couple things I want to discuss. Number one, first of all, we'll be doing the Palantir Weekly podcast today, and we'll be talking about that as well. So this is the biggest news. I think this is the biggest news that has happened in Palantir history. Now, obviously, when they have their growth spurt and, they're growing 40-50% and they're GAAP profitable and all this stuff, that's great. That'll be amazing. As shareholders, we're going to love to see that stuff. But just in terms of the reason you invested, right? Like, my personal reason for investing was two things. Number one, I see them as providing the technology that is going to power most of the entire world, to be honest, in the context of different verticals, right? Whether it's energy, healthcare, all this different stuff. I think they can have the most important software company. They can be the most important software company in the world. And Foundry and Gotham can power a lot of those things. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Can it happen? Yes. And that's the risk with investment. Number two is this idea philosophically about protecting values that have been dismayed in certain parts of the world. Usually those values are Western values around individualism and the sovereignty of the individual and the ethics of what it means to actually care about an individual's data. I think that stuff is incredibly important. And that's part of the reason why I invested in Palantir. As I started to go deeper and deeper into them, I learned that what they're doing on the governmental side, how they're protecting individual civilians, how they're not some surveillance state, and how they're the exact opposite of a surveillance state. I wonder what Ross Gerber thinks about this Palantir news with Alex Karp and Zelensky. Like, it's not good to imagine them as this horrible company without actually doing research into them. And the more research that I've done, I was like, wait a second, I think these guys are going to do something really important. Like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think they're going to do something really important. Then this cryptic interview drops with Alex Karp and the guy from Stanford, Kevin Walsh, where he's saying, look, the world is uneasy, the world is crazy, bad things can happen, and Palantir is meant to protect people during those bad things, during those bad times. I'm like, okay, I don't fully get it yet, but it sounds very esoteric. It's a very unique thing that the CEO is trying to get across. Then the Russia-Ukraine war happens. And the COVID pandemic is where Palantir really showed that they can operate at a moment's notice and be able to build things that help the entire world. That's phenomenal. That was great. But that wasn't that thing that was it made you get how big of a deal it was. And I think that's because of the nature of COVID and the pandemic and how we didn't really understand how to interpret it. When there's a war going on, when there's people that are dying, when there's an enemy that needs to be defeated, when there's a country that's trying to, literally invade another country, it becomes more personal. It becomes more real. You start to realize, well, what if that happened to us? How is this happening? Or why are innocent people dying? Innocent refugees have to now leave. You start to realize, wait a second, who's stopping this from happening? Who's helping this problem? How is this thing actually going to be resolved? And that's when you start to take Palantir a little bit more seriously, because you're like, oh, this is what they were doing. And then you see the COO, Sham Sagar, come out and say, hey, we are helping a bunch of issues in Ukraine and Russia. We're geospatial intelligence, meta-constellation. We're giving real-time data, blah, 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 blah. We're helping blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, okay, cool, I guess. But then you're also just like, but are you guys making money off this? How's this really working? Like, how's this happening? Like, you don't really know what's going on, right? You're just like, okay, I guess this is happening. Like what's actually going on? And then you see these pictures. And when you see these pictures, it's just like, wait a second. There is no other CEO doing this. I mean, they're literally saying Alex Karp is the first CEO of a large-scale opportunity to personally come visit Kyiv since the start of the full-scale war and show that Ukraine is open to cooperation and business. Like this, I haven't seen another CEO take a picture with the president of a country who's being invaded right now. I haven't seen that. And when you start to see that, and when you start to realize, oh shoot, they're actually working. We'll talk about what this means for the business in a second, but just from a personal perspective, from an investing perspective, it's like you want to put your money where you think people are doing good. And in a world in which most companies are never going to do good or are going to contradict themselves and do good, there's a reason why Palantir didn't have to leave China and Russia, because they chose not to work there in the first place. And it's like, when you say the words most important software company in the world, you have to pick a company that's philosophically ready to do that. And you also have to pick a company that's on the technical prowess, can execute the actual technology that's necessary to do that. And it seems like Palantir is that company. And these pictures today, more than anything, to me, it reinforced the fact that they're trying to do something bigger than themselves. And with them working with this actual country and with Ukraine and with the president, to me, it's just like, goodness, like, it's just insane. It's like, and the reason it's insane, because literally CodeStrap was on the Palantir Weekly podcast last week, and we were talking, and he was just like, you know, if they actually are doing what we think they're doing in Ukraine and Russia, there's going to be a massive, you know, $100 billion opportunity just in the governmental space. And a lot of people were just like, yeah, hopefully, maybe that's true. And then they come out with this picture, this photo op. I mean, they did a photo op for a reason, where you're like, wait a second. This actually might be a thing. They actually might be, you know, this speculation of us saying they're the most important software company because they're helping countries in the times of needs, and they're definitely in Russia, Ukraine. It was all speculation up until that photo. Even with them confirming, hey, we're working with the Ukrainian refugee crisis, we're doing this, we're doing that. We're like, all right, but it's not, you know, it's like when you close a deal, you got to get the money in the bank account, and then you can believe it's real. Seeing the president of Ukraine shake hands with the CEO of a company that says you're the first CEO to personally come visit this country, it's big, man. It's probably the biggest thing that's happened in Palantir history, at least since going public in the past 2 years, I would say. I mean, this is the biggest thing that I've seen happen. Now, let's talk about what this means for the business. So there's a couple things. Q2 revenue, they projected to be about $470 million, which is a 5% increase from $446 million in Q1. So they said, look, we're not going to be growing that much quarter to quarter, but you should expect significant volatility to the upside based upon our governmental business in the coming quarters. Now, what is that? What they're trying to say here is like, hey, there's a good chance we might get a lot of money from governments because of the Ukraine-Russia crisis. And again, it's still speculation. It's like, all right, are you just saying that for guidance? Are you saying that so the stock market doesn't freak out? Like, because saying you're only going to grow 5% quarter to quarter, the stock market's freaking out. It's like, hey, you guys are supposed to go 30% year over year. Like, that's not, you know, how are you going to be able to do that? So governmental revenue is the best type of revenue. It's sticky. It's always going to be there. It's quality type of revenue. So if they're able to use this situation in Russia and Ukraine to be able to set the precedent that they are the most important software company in the world and that they can mitigate these types of things from happening, or when they do happen, they can be the software that is used to actually stop worse things from happening, that's money that's going to be coming to Palantir. And I don't know now if they're going to get money from this Ukraine-Russia situation, specifically from Ukraine, but I suspect they will. The reason for this is because the United States just sent Ukraine like $40 billion. So theoretically, Ukraine has the money to pay for this, right? It's not like Ukraine is struggling for the money. They're not like, oh, we don't have the money, we need your services. I think Palantir probably gave the services for free with the expectation, obviously in the height of the war, they gave the services for free, I think, not asking for money, but the expectation was, which is why I think this meeting happened, that they're going to close a deal, they're actually going to be able to make things happen, and they're going to get some revenue out of this. How much is the revenue? I don't know, but the fact that their Q2 earnings or Q1 earnings says expect significant volatility to the upside, literally they said to the upside, right? Then that means that there is a chance that a lot of this revenue is going to be counted either in Q2, Q3, and Q4. It's just a question of when that's going to happen. So let's say they make, I don't know, $200-300 million. Do they put that all in one quarter and they showed like, hey, we made $600 million this quarter? Probably not, because then they have to do more than that the next quarter, or else it's going to show a decline. So it's likely going to be spaced out over time. Maybe it doesn't show up till 2023. I have no idea. We're going to find out. But I do think in the next couple quarters, there's going to be more hints of what they're doing in Russia and Ukraine, because now they've officially made it public, taking a picture with the president of a country that's under attack right now. So I think from a business perspective, it's going to be helpful. The other thing is like, given the United States just sent Ukraine $40 billion, the United States money technically is going to be paying for this Palantir service, given Ukraine has it now, right? So like Ukraine has the money to be able to give to Palantir. The question is, how can they negotiate a deal? The CEO going to Kyiv means that he went there to close a deal, in my opinion. Like there are some deals salespeople can close. There's some deals the CEO has to go and close, right? You've got to go. You've got to have the conversation. You've got to answer the tough questions. You've got to get the job done and get the deal closed. And if they close a Russia-Ukraine deal, or if they close a Ukrainian contract, I think that serves as a massive precedent to a lot of the other countries that are in the region that also are susceptible to a potential attack and that want to up their defense spend and make sure that they can protect themselves. And that's where, if this happens, the government business is going to be thriving, and Kathy would have been proved wrong at the end of the day. It's unfortunate that this war had to happen in order for that to happen. But again, the point of Palantir is like bad things happen, and who's going to stop? Who's going to be there when bad things happen, right? Who's going to be there? Who's going to be there? And when you have other companies that don't A, have the technology to be able to be there, but B, don't have the moral sort of guts to be there when things are going on in order to help in these times of need, and Palantir is the one that's left, and they have a functional monopoly on this type of protection. And there might be other competitors, but you've got to have competitors that also have the charisma that Palantir has to be able to land these deals, close these deals, and securely protect the data that is required to be able to establish these relationships in order to make these deals possible. This is probably the biggest news that has happened in Palantir for at least the last 2 years. I want to say history, but I'm pretty sure there's other stuff that's happened. But given the fact that we're in 2022 and a full-out war is going on, and Palantir is there to hopefully protect and mitigate a lot of the issues that are going on, whether it's using geospatial intelligence, whether it's using real-time data in their Gotham platform to let operators on the ground know in mission critical situations what's going on, where's the tanks, this stuff is vital. This stuff is important, and protecting these values are incredibly important. I'm a proud investor in Palantir today. Anyone should be a proud investor in Palantir. And we're going to see what happens. In terms of the stock price, the stock price is up 10%. We got to $9, but I think personally, I don't think this is really sustainable given all the issues that we have right now in the economy. I don't care about the stock price anymore. Like maybe it goes to 6, maybe it goes to 5. It's interesting. Maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down. But like, to me, we're in a bear market, and the bear market is going to take some while to get out of. When it gets out of the bear market and things are going back up and we're back to getting ready to be in a bull cycle, then I'll analyze like really how bad is the prices every day, or how the price fluctuation movement. But right now, you got to listen to setting up the foundation for the next 5 years, and the foundation is being the number one platform in the world, the number one software company in the world to deal with the worst situations that happen. And I think they are setting that precedent pretty likely, given Alex Karp says he knows what they're going to write about them in 2 years. So let me know your thoughts on this. Very, very deep, very, very critical stuff, interesting stuff. Please leave your comments below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know, was it interesting? Was it, first of all, here's the comment. How did you find out about this? That's the thing. How did you find out about how this is happening? And this is a great day to be a Palantir shareholder, in my opinion, because it shows you that what they're doing actually does matter at the end of the day. So thank you so much for watching. Looking forward to reading comments. I'll see you guys in the next one.